is Giselle, and I'm currently working on my exercise 10 of the subject Contemporary World. This exercise is about the Cold War. This was a period of economic, political, and military tension between the United States and the Soviet Union from 1945 to 1991. Some of the most important events were the Berlin blockade and airlift in 1948, the Korean War in 1950, the space race in 1957, the Bay of Pigs in 1961, and the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. The Berlin blockade was an international crisis that arose from an attempt by the Soviet Union in 1948-49 to force the Western Allied powers, which were the United States, the United Kingdom, and France, to abandon their post-World War II jurisdictions in West Berlin. On the other side, on the Korean War, the Soviet Union and the United States were also involved. The North Korea was allied with the Soviet Union and South Korea was allied with the US. Even though the United States were involved in this war, it didn't get a lot of attention on the US. Meanwhile, the space race was another competition between the US and the Soviet Union. Now we're going to say the definition of the Cold War. It was an open yet restricted rivalry that developed after the World War II between the United States, the Soviet Union, and of course the respective allies. It was a wage on political, economic, and propaganda fronts and had only limited recourse to weapons. Of course that during this time they started using nuclear weapons. It began in Europe after the World War II, as we say before, and the Soviet Union won control of the Eastern Europe, while the United States won control of the Western Germany and West Berlin. To get a better understanding of this topic, we have to know the difference between capitalism and socialism, because the United States was fighting for capitalism and the Soviet Union for the socialism or communism. We're going to explain the difference later. So the capitalism was an economic system which was characterized by a private or corporate ownership of capital goods, by investments that are determined by private decision, and by prices, production, and distribution of goods that are determined mainly by competition in a free market. The originators of this classical political economy were Adam Smith, David Ricardo, James Stewart, and others that are not well known. Now we're going to talk about socialism, which is an economic system where everyone in society equally owns the factors of production. This means that everyone in the society receives a share of the production based on how much each one has contributed. This system motivates people to work long hours if they want to receive more, and workers often receive their share of production after a percentage has been deducted for the common good. Now we have communism. This is a system where all property is public and people work and are given things by the government according to their needs. For example, if we have a big house and only 3 people living here, and on the other side of the city there's a big family who only has a small house with 2 rooms, they exchange this because of their needs. An example of communism will be the governance system in Cuba, where the government controls everything, the money, health, and even the food that they give to their people. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels were often considered the founders of communism. As we know, Karl Marx wrote a lot of things about this, and Friedrich Engels did this as well. Now the interview. I did this interview to my mother. The first question is, what countries were the world leaders during this period? She said the United States and Russia. Next question, why did countries who were allies during the wars become enemies afterwards? And she said that it was because they realized that the United States and Russia were not going to share all their achievements and things that they have gained during the war, and that they were going to make themselves powerful alone and forget about their allies. Then the third question, where did the Cold War take place? And she said that it was mainly in Europe, Korea, Vietnam, and Cuba. Fourth question, what opinion did the general public have of the Cold War? Well, in her opinion, she said that it wasn't a smart choice because they were all just fighting for power and money, and of course that wars always end up badly. They leave a lot of debt and rings after them. And the last question, what type of weapons did the two world powers have at their disposal? And she said that this was the time where they started using more nuclear weapons. At last, my opinion about the Cold War, well, about wars in general, is that I truly believe that they don't leave anything good at all. Like, sometimes countries blind themselves, wanting more power, more money, more territory, but they don't realize that in fact they may end up losing more than what they are fighting for. So I believe that if there is a conflict between two countries or more, they should speak things first, like patiently, and be aware of the consequences that wars carry, like all the death, all the misery, all the third parts that are going to suffer, and future generations. Because war are not something to be spoken easy about. You can fight, like you can just have a disagreement with someone and say, oh yeah, I'm going to fight with this country, I'm going to launch some missile or something like that. You should first speak things clearly, patiently, and be aware of everything that may happen.